My name is Jamil, and today I'm going to be taking you through another leak code. Today's problem is that number 1684, titled Count the Number of Consistent Strings. Okay, so this is another company's question, so we're going to take some time to go over it and try to see how I would go about solving this. I know there are other ways of solving it, but this was the solution that I came up with, and hopefully I can help you understand the question to the best of my abilities. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the problem here states that you are given a string allowed, like it's hosted in variable allowed, consisting of distinct characters and an array of strings words. Okay, so we're passed two arguments. So a string is consistent if all the characters in the string appear in the string allowed. Okay, so what we will be doing is we will be running a check against both of these variables and return the number of consistent strings in an array titled words. Okay, so if we take a look at our example here, we see that we have the word allowed, the variable allowed with A and B as a string inside of it, and then the words, the variable words with an array of strings A, D, B, D, triple A, B, B, double A, and then badab. All right. And essentially what we're doing is we need to determine and see if all of the characters in a specific word held in the array words is made up of all of the allowed letters in the allowed variable. So what does that mean? You know, A, and B, right, is made up of A and B. So they are made up of the allowed letters. B, A, and A are made up of A and B, which are the allowed letters. A and D, you know, B and D or badab, they contain the letter D, which isn't part of our allowed words, so we aren't going to be using them, or we aren't going to be counting them. All right, let's move on to our next one. Allowed is A, B, and C, and then words is, you know, consists of the array A, B, C, you know, A, B, A, C, B, C, and A, B, C, which are all part of, you know, the allowed words. Now, it's important to note that, you know, A isn't made up of B and C, but it's still made up of A, and it's the full string, so that is a consistent string, okay? So it doesn't have to contain everything that is in the allowed variable, but as long as the word itself is made up, is in its entirety made up of any part of the allowed characters, then we are fine. All right, so same thing with example number 3, and then we will see that we have, you know, words that are up to, I guess, 10,000 words in length, 10,000 characters in length, and our allowed length, so it can only be 26 characters, which is every letter of the alphabet, okay? And then the individual index can have a length of up to 10 characters. All right, so the total array can have up to 10,000, up to 1,000 inputs, but each input in the array can be up to 10 characters. All right, so, and it says here, words I and allowed contain only lowercase English letters, and that the characters in allowed are distinct. Important to know, okay? So, without further ado, let's start determining what is being passed into our function. So, we are passed two arguments, okay? The argument labeled allowed will contain a string of strictly, from what it looks like, lowercase alphabet letters, okay? The argument labeled words will contain, you know, it will be an array of strings. It is up to us to determine how many words in the array of strings are made up of only allowed characters. Okay? And so basically what that's going to do is we're going to need to count. All right? So if we're counting, what are we doing? We need to return the total number of allowed, or of, I guess consistent is the word that they're using, consistent words in the words array. Okay. Basically, the job is to determine the total number of consistent words. Okay. Perfect. So what are we going to do? First, the way that I would go about this is by, since we know that we need to return a number, I'm going to start with my counter. Okay. So I'll start off by saying, let counter set a variable to determine how many consistent words there are. Okay, so we're going to say let counter, which is a number, equal to 0. Perfect. Then we need to iterate over our loop. Okay, so, one thing to note, that you can iterate over arrays and you can iterate over strings. So you will see that we are going to be using very weird syntax today. You have I'll hope to try and explain that to you to the best of my ability. But basically, iterate over the loop. Oh my goodness, the loop, and determine which characters aren't in the allowed string. Okay, so I'm going to do this backwards. I'm going to first try to see if, for example, the character D doesn't show up in allowed, then I'm going to count that. Okay. And the reason being is because, if I was to count to see if A is in the allowed string, it is, but then D is not. So what do I do? Right? How do I go about counting that? And the way that I came up with it was I was going to try and do the reverse, count everything that wasn't in the allowed strings, and then, take the total length of the array, subtract the total number of strings that aren't allowed, and you get the total allowed strings, or words. So let's see here. If we do let I, which is a number, equal to 0, and I is less than, am I counting over allowed dot length, and then I plus plus, right? Am I doing that? No. Why am I not doing that? Because then I miss out on all of the missing words. So we'll see here. Allowed is only a length of 2, but words is a length of 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, a length of 5. So if I'm only going up to 2, then I'm missing, indexes 3, 4, and 5. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to run a secondary check, a secondary loop, right? Because the first loop for words allows me to iterate over the whole array. But each array consists of a nested string, and you can iterate over strings. And to iterate over strings, what will we use? We will be using a secondary iterator. All right. So for my secondary iterator, I'm going to be using the character J, so that my program knows what I am asking of it. Okay. In J++. For the sake of simplicity, once again, I will be doing this. I'll be leaving a comment here and saying, use a secondary loop to iterate over the individual words inside of the words array. I guess I'll say individual words, we'll say strings here. Okay? Perfect. So now that we are in our secondary loop, right? You will notice here that when I am iterating from let j equals 0, j is less than words I dot length, right? Words I is any of these strings, right? So it will differ from word to word. The first time it will be 2, the last time it will be 5, so on and so forth. And I'm going to use the includes method to check to see if any of the characters in words I don't show up in, and I'll say allowed, okay? The variable allowed. Cool. So if words, no, sorry, if allowed not includes words I, J, right? Count plus equals 1. But, oh, counter, sorry. Plus equals 1. But this is not going to work out because words I, J, right? So when we're saying words I, when words I is 0, when this is a 0, and this is a 0, right? What words 0, 0 is referring to is this letter A here in the first index of the first string showing up in the words array, okay? And the secondary 0 here, the secondary 0 specifically refers to this A. When I change this to a 1, it will be referring to the letter D, okay? But when I have a check that is like this, it says if allowed includes the D, add to the counter, right? I don't want that. I need to make sure that when it is not included for it to count, okay? Because like I said earlier, I am working backwards. So we have if not allowed characters, that includes words 0, 1, counter plus equals to 1, right? And so basically we have determined at this point how many of the words do not include our allowed characters. So to determine how many words include the allowed characters, what we will do is just subtract the difference, right? It's like you have the total words minus the disallowed words, which will be, looks like this. Total words is equal to allowed words, right? Plus disallowed words. And this is just like a math equation. It's not like coding specific. You can then say, you can always say that allowed words by doing a little bit of rearrangement is equal to the total words, right? Minus the disallowed words. And that's how you can, like, if you move this disallowed words over, you know, you'll be able to figure out the total number of allowed words. And what I want to do is I want to work with this equation right here. So I will be getting rid of this one for the sake of simplicity. And I need to determine the total number of allowed words because I have counted the total number of disallowed words. This bang in front of the word allowed tells me if it is not included, count it. Okay? What will I be doing here? So return the total number of allowed words using the difference. Okay? Return words.length, which is the full length of this, minus counter. Okay? Which is total words minus the disallowed words. And let's see if this is going to work. I may have a mistake somewhere here or there, but I think this should be proper. Yeah, okay, let's take a look at this. Minus 11. Oh, right. I forgot one important step. When you are making sure that a word is not included in the allowed words, you don't want to continue counting because you already know that that word is not part of your allowed words. I need to break out of my loop, right? So let's see here. When we find that D is not included in the allowed words, or for example here, right? When it is not included in the allowed words, essentially what is happening is that it continues to count, and we want it to break out the moment it figures out that any of these words are not in the allowed set of characters. It's a little bit confusing, but you don't want to, like, the issue here is that you don't want to continue counting when things show up that you don't want them to be there. Let's see here. Also still the wrong answer. So what am I doing here? Oh, I forgot to change this back. Whoops. Okay, perfect. So I did actually forget my break the first time around, but I also forgot to change my characters back to the way that they were. Okay, so why does this work? Let's see. If I can in my first loop, show you the console log. Okay, so what am I console logging here that will show you exactly what I'm trying to talk about? Okay, so I have my counter, I have my I, right? I have my J, I have my counter, and then what do I have? I want to determine what word I am on, okay? Let's say word I, and then words I, J. Okay? So let's see here. All right, so AD is the word that we are on. All right, is A included in the allowed characters? It is, so we're not going to count. Okay, then we have D, because see here, A and D, and now we're on the character D. So words IJ is the character D. We're still on our first word, but now we are on our second character, right? If I was to include a console log here, if I was to do this console log in here, right, you would see that the counter goes up to 1. But you will see in our next step, when we have moved over, when I is now 1, right, we're on B and D, we're on the letter B, right? Counter has now moved up to 1 from our last iteration, right? When we have moved from one word to the next word, we have determined that there is one character in our word that is not part of the allowed strings. And then when we get to this end here, right, you'll see that all of these guys here include all of these allowed words, so it doesn't add to our counter. It's only when we see AD and BD, and then at the end, when we see BADAB, BDAB, right? So we have a total of 5 letters, right? Right before we do our end, we'll console log, right, words.length, and then we will also console log counter. So I can't put these in curly brackets. But right before the end, you will see that the total length of words is 5, and that the counter is 3, and that our output is 2, and that this equation holds true, that the total words is minus the disallowed words actually gives us the total number of allowed words in a string. I think this here, example number 3, might also be a good example for us to see, where we have, 8 total characters, 4 of them disallowed, 4 of them allowed, and you come back with the difference, which is the total number of allowed words. Okay? I know this may be a little bit confusing, but I will be uploading this solution to my GitHub so that you can play around with it and that you can take a look at what's happening and learn from it. But if you like this video, please make sure to like the video. If you are new to the channel or not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I do try to post these on a daily basis. If you learned something today, please leave a comment. Tell me what you learned, or if you're confused about a certain part, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to go over it with you. But once again, my name is Jamil. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and I'll see you next video.